Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of Clay's Cortex, the podcast. We've been on hiatus for a while. Been real busy here at work and just managing things and so forth. And you guys know what I'm talking about. But it's a new year. We're going to get a lot more consistent with the podcast. I'm excited. I got a good amount of guests lined up. The guest today, Steve, he is in Florida. And we've messaged back and forth a few times trying to set this up and go. And I'm really excited just to kind of hear his perspective on what we go over today. And we're going to kind of flow. We're going to kind of go all over. We're going to direct it a little bit. But just to hear his perspective on exercise and so forth. I met him years ago. And I'm a big observer. And so watching him operate at this course in Denver, MAT, that I had first met him at, and the people that go to the course or the day before the course, which is like the anatomy stuff, those are the people that I felt like were pretty legit. And so just watching him observe and so forth, and then he would interact with Matt, which I got to get Matt on here. It was really cool, and that's how I first met him, and we've just kind of kept in touch over the years. And so I'm going to be quiet now, but Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at, and we'll go from there.
So I'm operating in the Fort Lauderdale area. I have this facility down here that this location I've been in now going on 2 years. Mm-hmm. Actually just opened it February 1st, 2020, as soon as all this COVID stuff went down. What was actually somewhat of a blessing, because before this I was in this one big plaza with shopping center plaza, and had I stayed there, we would have had to shut everything down here. And then this situation, I got 2,500 square feet of open space. It's not all gym. I have offices. I have a massage therapist here. I have a classroom, all that good stuff. But it's being that it's just me right now with the training. We have lots of open space for distancing and mask wearing and all that good stuff. So. It was good timing on the move. I'm really happy with the facility. I've basically renovated the whole thing last year. I've probably swapped out 60 to 70% of my equipment. So I finally got to. I know, it really just it started out as one machine, and it just steamrolled. I just got in this crazy zone. I think I discovered eBay, which was dangerous.
Hey, dude.
Some great deals here, man. It became a whole thing. But it's finally looking like I envisioned it when I first started, right? I had this vision of this theme, kind of what I wanted, right? And as I sit back and look at it, it's there, and it's a nice thing to see it kind of develop over the years. And now it's really just about growing, maybe getting more people on board and growing this situation down here. We've been doing good, man. We've been teaching courses again, and so I got people coming over here. A lot of them are local from Miami, but some are from out of town. Some are flying here again. Things have been overall good.
Good, man. I love it. I think it was really cool just hearing you, because I remember when you first moved into this space, like seeing on Instagram and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, sick, right? And the build out, and then you had the classroom and all the different rooms. I'm like, dude, I love it, man.
Yeah.
It's helpful. Yeah, it is. I think a lot of people underestimate the work it takes to set something up. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of hats that are worn when it comes to running a business in general, but definitely a fitness business for sure. So I know that you said people have been coming down for courses, they've been teaching and so forth. What exactly are you teaching? What are you going through so that people can understand that?
So, as you know, and some folks know, I'm one of the instructors for the resistance training specialist course. Tom Purvis obviously owns and runs out of Oklahoma. There's not many of us. There's only maybe 3 or 4 of us in the States really running courses. I know Sam in Canada does a pretty good job at teaching pretty consistently. He's great. But really, it's just a handful. And it's evolved over the years because it used to be the instructors, and you mentioned earlier about meeting each other at this MAT course. Like, remember back, even years before that, many of the instructors worked for both organizations, and they just floated around from gym to gym. And now all the instructors have their own facilities, so we don't have to fly, travel, and float, right? And it's a lot better. So that's, for those who don't know, the RTS course is a very, very heavily based exercise mechanics course. It's really difficult to have a 30-second elevator
Yeah, dude.
station over it, man. And it's when someone says, well, what is it? And it's like, well, it's hard to put into a few words, but all I can say is a very in-depth look at exercise,
Yeah.
well far beyond what the industry offers. And that's not just me saying that because I'm an instructor. I mean, if you just get some feedback from the students who've been there, I mean, it's like an overwhelmingly positive, like, oh my God, this course is exactly, what I've been craving all these years. It finally fills in some of these gaps I've been having in my head. And that's good. I love that. And it has evolved so that on Monday morning, they can actually make some better decisions.
Yeah.
Whereas in the beginning, maybe when the course was first being developed, it was like a watered down version of all the mastery stuff Tom would teach. Very science based, very technical, and it was overwhelming for people.
Yeah.
And they loved the course, but at the same time, you see them reverting back to some old habits just because it just seems so overwhelming that they were never going to be able to really grasp this. So we've really changed that. Very practical, very hands-on, and we call it now foundational.
Okay.
Because what we're doing is we're laying a foundation for what Tom teaches, which is much more detailed, much more advanced stuff. I would love this class to be 6 months long. In fact, I always said it should be like a semester, should be like a full school semester where we can do this in pieces, but it's just not realistic, right? I mean, it's hard enough to get people to come for 2 days at a time, let alone commit to a full course, right? So we can.
Yeah, which is great though. I mean, I think that course really I got exposed to it when I heard Tom first come speak when I went to MIT, and I was pretty drawn in just because I'm a bit of, and my teachers or my professors and stuff, or whatever, college teachers, it was a love-hate relationship because I'm a bit of a contrarian at heart, and I like to push back on things and know why. And so when I heard Tom first speak, I was like, dude, I got to know more about this, like what this is. And I remember I went out to Oklahoma, and it almost like gave me the freedom to, like, you're not thinking crazy, like the things that you're thinking about, they're not crazy, but can we check you? Can we use physics, and can we check your thought process for this person? And I think that was cool. And I think one thing that really stuck out to me is he's like, give me a real world example. He kept saying that, like, give me a real world example. And I thought that was pretty fascinating. And so from that, you actually get to make personal training personal for that person. I mean, it could change, session to session sometimes, even though we may have a goal of what you're going to reach and so forth. But to have something to build around the person is great. And I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but I feel like people are they'll use words, and I've used these words like, tailored or individualization or whatever it is. But then when you look at it, it's just a copy and paste system with a lot of people, right? So like when you go into working with somebody, it doesn't be like super specific. What are some of the things that you're thinking about when you're starting with them, or as you go through your process? Like, how do you go through that?
Well, again, this is an RTS thing, but I think this is really one of my favorite things about the course was this whole who own, have, goal, tolerate, right? Yeah. And that's why when you ask a question, that's the thing about RTS is we're not teaching you what to think. We're teaching you how to think. You're not leaving there with a list of things to do in order to do them in.
Yeah.
It's okay. First of all, you got someone that walks in first time. Well, who are they? Who are they? Is it, you don't think anything's going to change for having like a 15-year-old to a 90-year-old? There's going to be some differences. Hormones, life, whatever. So you only get to work with what the person brings to the table first of all. All right. So what do they have available to them? Oh, I came in because I heard you were good. I have this shoulder thing. I can't really lift my arm up. I don't know why, just by looking at you. I'm not making. I don't have X-ray vision. I'm not Superman. The people think just by walking in, I'm all of a sudden going to diagnose their problems. There's a plethora of things that could be right the reason why you can't do that. But I'm going to respect the fact that they can't right now. And that could be a structural thing, which I have no influence over.
Right.
Could be a muscular thing, which I could have some influence over. But you got to ask yourself, after the WHO, and what do they have, and well, how much can they tolerate? And what are they doing now? What are they exercising at all now? What is their day-to-day like? So you need to know those things so you have some form of, well, what do I start with? And starting with historically has been, 20 minutes on the treadmill or a 5K or 3 sets of 10, and just been brainwashed into these things. And the only thing that's like 3 sets of 10 has ever shown to be was better than 0 sets of 0, right? So, like, why do we need to do that many? All right, or why do we need to be counting to begin with? So we need to know that, and really the idea is just I want to progress this person based on what they're bringing to the table and their own goals. Goals are important too. Why are they here? They want you. Do they want you to get them out of pain, and what is their definition of getting stronger? I've heard stories of guys who've trained clients and have progressed on every measurable scale they have. Oh, you're going up on all these machines, you're getting stronger, and they still quit. The client still quits. And you're like, well, and they can't believe it. And why? Why would that happen? Well, I still can't pick up my kid and my grandkids and without my back hurting, and I just don't feel like it's working. Because their idea of strengthening was a particular activity that they were struggling doing. And so you have to account for all those things. There's so much to consider, man, when someone walks in. So to narrow it down to a few things, my mind's constantly going. I mean, I need to know. The first thing I ask someone when I walk in is, how you feeling today?
Yeah.
How you feeling? I need to know if you slept 2 hours or 8 or 10. That's going to determine what I do today also, not just because I had some pre-written, pre-programmed thing on a piece of paper. That's all out the window, man. If they had really poor sleep the night before or drank the night before or had a game the night before, depending on who we're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's not as though you don't have a plan, but that plan needs to have lots of flexibility,
right,
based on what they bring to the table today. And so progression isn't always linear, right? It's just not that you get better and better. There's going to be ups or some downs, but as long as the trajectory is going in the right direction, you're progressing, and that's how it's going to be in real life,
I agree. I mean, I think that's great. I think what's cool is like you got to know what the person's objective is. I think a lot of times we tend to inject, our own. Oh, this is what they mean by stronger. Like you have no clue. I mean, I think one thing for me is I've always been a fan of words and the history of words. Like what's the root of this word and so forth. And so the English language, I believe, isn't really the best in describing how people feel sometimes. And so the cool thing about that process is once you actually get to hear what their objective is, you might need to draw it out a little bit of like, okay, like in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, you want to pick your kid up without your back hurting. Holy cow. Okay. I'm already probably thinking about, could be some stuff around the pelvis and just some spinal strength. Maybe, they might have gone somewhere where they're told to not move their spine, or whatever it is. And then from there, how do you actually build up the exercise to, in that scenario, how do you safely help them build strength in their back, right? Or whatever it is. And then from there, it's like, I hear that all the time too, which is kind of like, man, I got this person stronger or blah, blah, but their objectives weren't met. And I think what's interesting about that is you start off the relationship with communication's crucial. And if you have that communication there's a trust that's built. And then from there, we can start to explore and grow. And it's not linear. I think a lot of people, it's so funny though. Like if you think about it, right? Like we do think things should go linear, like in a linear path. But in life, in so many other aspects of life, that's not true at all. Which is fascinating, man. So yeah, dude, being able to figure out those things and how to communicate to them is, I think, very crucial. And I think what's cool about what you said too is that the ability of you're like, I'm always thinking. Right? You said, I'm always thinking.
Reevaluate. Always question yourself. Constantly question it. I mean, if you have, if you develop a certain amount of intellect over time, you develop some confidence and things. But the worst thing you can be is overconfident. That's the worst thing you can be. And if you think you figure something out or know it all, you've already stopped learning.
Right.
Right. And heck, I've heard Tom many times say he's never, ever satisfied with his work. You know, he does something, and as soon as he's done with it, he instantly hates it and thinks about how can I improve it. And when I hear him say that, I'm like, man, that must be frustrating to be in his head all the time. But then I realize I think he actually he loves that. That's what he loves. He loves the process, man. You can't skip steps.
Right.
People want to skip steps. It's like, oh, I just got my license yesterday, but I want to drive NASCAR tomorrow. It's like,
whoa.
That's true. You have to have a working car to even get in the race in the first place.
Right.
Right. And so, you see that, and you probably definitely see that with these youth athletes, man. They're thrown into plyometrics and thrown into these things, and they can barely walk, man. I mean, right. Their coordination, their motor skills aren't developed yet, and we're trying to skip steps. So I would say, man, you can't make assumptions, right? That's the big thing. Don't make assumptions when someone walks through the door based on just how they look.
Right.
Because I've seen people who've walked in my door. I've had guys, massive kyphosis, and they're like 60 years old, and their exercise is basically walking into the liquor store, and you're like, oh, this person's going to be a mess, right? And they'd be surprisingly strong and surprisingly tolerant. And then I've had guys who were bouncers who come in and ripping out of their shirt with muscles and have the strength of a small child,
right? Because
they've just gotten really, really skilled at cheating and launching things over the years and never really adapted and got any stronger.
Right.
And they're complaining, and they're in worse shape orthopedically than some of these older guys, man, because they're just completely abusing their bodies. And, you can only do that for so long, man. You can get away with it for the most part when you're young and in your 20s. And that's why I think most of our clients tend to be middle-aged, because they get to a point where, well, I just can't do this anymore. I'm having a problem. I need more help. Right. I can't tolerate this any longer.
I think that's interesting, man. Tolerate, right?
Yeah.
Stress, tolerate.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty crucial, right? And I don't know if you've seen, like, I've seen younger and younger people like my age with stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen that more now, right? Like, they may have worked out, they may have done these types of things. I'm just like, holy cow. It's almost like a re-education process, right? Of like, this is what, hey, listen, I am so happy you've been exercising. I'm so happy. That's good. I was like, but the way you've been doing it, your body cannot tolerate, right? You're at the ends of your motion, say a chest press, right? That little like timing bounce, whatever it is. And they get to the top, and it might be like where they get unloaded or something like that. And they're like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. I was like, I'm strong though. I'm like, well, the weight that you're moving, yeah, it may be heavy, but your amount of launching and inertial timing, if I had you pause right here, you ain't moving that thing.
Right.
Right. And so I think that's what's interesting is, like, I think people are hungry for people that will help educate them on how to keep training, but stay healthy.
And that's where you say words matter, because somebody comes in, I work out, I've been working out for years. And then they say they want to work out hard. And when it actually becomes hard, they don't want anything to do with it, because their idea of hard is, breathing heavy, making faces, having some challenge, but the speed and the launching of what they're doing, thinking they're working out vigorously, is actually a form of cheating.
Right.
And when their muscular system is forced to have to respond to what they're doing, now that's hard. And what's the first thing they want to do? Go faster and launch it. Why?
Yep.
To get out of the challenge. But when I say words matter, you can't take somebody like that, bring them in for the first day and be like, oh, all right, man, everything you've been doing at this point is complete BS. You can't say that to someone.
Right.
You say, hey, what do you usually do for, let's say, your abs? What do you do those? Do you do anything for that? I was like, oh yeah, I do crunches. I do all that stuff. Oh, okay. Can we do a crunch, and can we try some things a little bit differently? Yeah, make it a challenge. So try it with this and start progressing the cues themselves. And the best thing you can get back from someone like that was when they go, I've never felt it that way before.
Yeah.
And it's like, boom, cha-ching, you're in. Why would they go anywhere else? They've never felt it that way before. They've been doing this for how long?
Right.
They've had trainers and all this. That's the best thing I could hear. Oh, and by the way, I didn't hurt, and I felt pretty good. And I wasn't a bunch of fear wasn't created by negative words saying, well,
Right.
this apprehension, especially when you talk about the spine, when someone first does like spinal extension, they've never done it before that way. And it's like they freak out. They think they're going to hurt themselves because they've been told by everybody to avoid.
Right.
And it's like, calm down. As long as we're working within this person's ability and tolerance and not trying to destroy them,
right.
Then they start, okay, a little more confidence. You can't walk around like you're on glass all the time, man, because it's this apprehension can in itself lead to pain and not progressing, right? So getting them comfortable. And if we're speaking to trainers here, I mean, depending on your business model, you want to create an experience.
Yes.
That's positive. And it is truly an experience. So if I'm going somewhere and I feel physically better when I leave and I feel emotionally better, the person that's training you is pleasant, well, I want to go back to that place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're going to a place where Monday, the idea is to make you vomit because you had one extra bite of cake or something on a birthday from some militant trainer, and that is just absurd. And I'm never going to want to go back to that. And most people won't.
Right.
And so you'll have this revolving door business to eventually you get fizz out mentally and all that stuff. So it truly is creating an experience from start to finish. That 1 hour, even it might be your 10th hour of the day, but that's your client's one and only hour, man. And you have to be on your game. And if you care, if you're passionate, that shouldn't be hard work.
Right.
It should be something that you want to do. So you got to channel that. And when I teach, all I really want is someone to have some kind of passion for this, because if they have that, you can channel that, and then they're open to learning.
Yep.
But if they're in it for any other reason, like they don't know what to do with their lives, or they like exercise personally, that doesn't always work out.
Right.
Because it's not there. They're just looking at it from a selfish perspective. This is a certain industry, man.
Oh man, you know what? Yes. Yes, man, I totally agree. What was interesting is when I first got into I would say I entered the field, I think it was like 2010. But I knew, like, when I was in high school, I wanted to be around athletics still. I was really small out of high school. Like, I wanted a college scholarship. I wasn't sure. Like, I graduated high school. I was 5'5", 135 pounds.
Oh,
like, wow. I was just a little guy. And I think that was like my how I grew up, resources. Like, we didn't have food sometimes and whatnot, but I played sports and I love baseball. And I knew I wanted to do something with sports. Like, I could do something with sports still, like post college and stuff. So I thought I was going to be an athletic trainer. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, my godfather was coaching at Texas Tech when Leach was there. And that's where I met my first mentor, who he just got hired at USC now. Their whole staff came from Oklahoma. They were at Norman. And so they're there now. But I went and shadowed my godfather. I was 16. I went and shadowed the athletic trainers there. And I looked at some of these football players' feet, dude, when they had to work on them. And I was like, dude, I can't be touched. Like,
that's
some nasty stuff. I was fascinated. Like, I like the body, right? And then I went back when I was 18, and my godfather's like, all right, listen. And I got a scholarship to junior college around here, which was technically like 1/4 was covered. And I was like, okay. And that's when I started, like, he didn't have me lift weights until then, just because, like, that old school mentality in NFL. He was like, do your push-ups and sit-ups. Make sure you're focusing on your breathing. And so I didn't do weights. I did a lot of movement stuff. So I met this strength coach. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. And I was really passionate about being able to be around those athletes or whoever I'm working with and be there for them, help them on their journey. Like, I wanted to kind of serve and help people that way. And that's kind of the field of us being able to help people achieve their objectives or goals has been great. But when I got into the field, I realized, like, oh my gosh, dude, I love exercising, but when you run a business And when you're training somebody, just like with kids, like your objectives can take a break sometimes. Like I still work out, still stay healthy, that type of stuff. But I'm so focused on like my perspective of like, I'm here to help people. How can I educate myself? Where am I lacking information? Where am I lacking? Do I have a bias with my programming with exercise people? All these types of things. I thought it was kind of interesting when you're like, yeah, like if they have a passion in the field, you can leverage that. But because it's not about me, there's a lot of, and you'll meet him on Instagram. You'll meet trainers. You'll meet people. It is about them. And totally. I think from that aspect, it's like they're always defending what they're doing versus like, let's see what this person needs today.
When their Instagram fill 90% of pictures of themselves. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, right? For sure. Right. Shirtless pics and, dudes shirtless pics, not girls shirtless pics, but, it's just interesting. I think it's interesting because that was a big shift for me. Like, that's why people would always ask me, like, dude, you're going to these courses. And I think that's why I loved RTS, because I could use that process with my training. When I went to MAT, it was using a tool to apply. Like, you always go in these courses trying to learn. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it because I want to be better at what I do to help you guys reach your goals. Yeah. And parents would ask that, athletes would ask that. They'd be like, wow, why do you keep going to courses?
That's
this
funny.
Is why. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
why do you keep going to courses? As if it's like weird to want to keep learning.
Yeah, well, think about it. I mean, even our industry set up like, oh, you have a degree in the field, right? Great, you're done.
Yeah.
You just got this certification.
Yeah.
You're done.
Well, you try to get them to go to one of these courses and go, I already got my CUs for the year.
Whew.
It's not what it's about, man. It's like it's about improving.
Yes.
Right? It's not just getting the certs.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it's funny because like you'll see people and it's like they want to keep getting that cert, and it's like, okay, like I could care less about the cert. I'm more interested in like I've gone to courses, and that's when you said this course popped into my head. You're like, yeah, the course isn't about getting a list or order of exercises, right? And I went to this course here because people kept talking about it, and I got a couple clients that worked with this person online, and it didn't go so well, and then they came here and like, wow, this is way better or whatever. So I need to know what their process is so I can communicate with other trainers that are bought into this system and so forth. And it was awful, dude. I asked a question like, this is what's funny. They're like, oh, well, never go to somebody like if they can't do like you can't barbell pinch with them if they can't arms move the same distance. And so then like I was like, okay, like cool thing about dumbbells, right? Maybe dumbbells and you can or match the position and so forth. Like, well, if this arm doesn't go as far as this one, you got to stop there, right? Sure. I mean, obviously I'm talking to you, So I asked like, what if you got somebody like that arms here and this one's here? Like, well, I'll just do dumbbell press. I'm not kidding. And I was like, dude.
So you finished with this one and then this one?
Yeah. I'm like, well, you can't do dumbbell press. But then there's multiple ways to set up an exercise to work that musculature. And it may not even look like what you want it to look like. Yeah. And they're like, there's a PT that helps in the class, whatever. And was like, well, I mean, I'm a PT and I've never seen that in my life. And I'm like, you've never seen that? I'm like, I got a guy that I work with for the past 6 months.
There's no way it's not there. He's not looking for it.
But I'm like, what? Like this. So like this guy, for example, I was working with him and he came in and got referred to me. We've been working with each other for like 3-4 years after this accident he had. And he's like, dude, I don't know why. This dude is like type A. Like he will put in the work. And I had to almost taper him back a little bit because what he was doing was his body wasn't tolerating. Yeah. Okay. So he came in and he's like, well, I need to work on my pull-ups. And I'm like, bro, you can't even move your arm. Like this is you. I was like, you want me to put something over your head? And he's just like, he didn't comprehend and so forth. And so I was talking to him and I was like, dude, listen, if you want to do something with that shoulder, like I need you to go to the doctor, bro. Right. Because his injury wasn't his arm, his injury was, right? So he comes back and he's like, yeah, I need surgery, man. I'm like, oh, really? What do you guys got? I got 13 bone spurs around my shoulder. I'm like, 13? So in that instance, right, like they were telling me like, yeah, just dumbbell press, have him stop here. And the PT goes, oh, there's no way he had 13 bone spurs. I'm like, dude, I have the report. Because the thing is like what'd you say? You said earlier, we can't assume anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, would I have ever guessed, like, oh, he has 13 bone spurs and I can see through his tissue and see? No.
Right. Yeah. No, it must be tight muscles all the time. Yeah.
I mean, that's structural.
Yeah. You know, that your client, that he's the one who want to do the pull-ups, the bone spur guy.
Yeah, we can do pull downs now, but like he has to be at an angle to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to, you know.
But that goes again back to the original, and you're just meeting somebody, you're trying to get their goals down, asking the question in different ways. It sounds as though people believe that a certain exercise leads to a certain result. Like, well, I have to do pull-ups because if I do pull-ups, I'm going to get big, strong back or whatever.
Yes.
And it's like, well, the goal is never to do the exercise. It's not as if this exercise is going to lead to more improvements than this or that one or the other one.
Love it.
It's all force, right? Forces. And if we can find a way to not piss off that shoulder and get you a really strong back, are you game for that? Yeah. Okay, well, that's maybe right for now. I don't know if it's going to be down the road.
Right.
We're going to avoid these pull-up things for now because you're just not there right now. And I'm not sure we need this to get to where you need to go. So if somebody comes in and they say something, and let's look at some of the typical things people will say. Well, I want to lose 10 pounds.
Okay.
Something like that. Okay, well, let me ask you this. If you're to lose 10 pounds, let's say we accomplished your goal, right? We lose 10 pounds. And then you look in the mirror, but you're not satisfied with how you look still. How are you going to feel about that? And it's like they got to compute that for a second because they, in their mind, believe that, well, that 10 pounds had a certain end, a certain look to it.
Right.
And it doesn't always. Ooh. And so I said, well, if you looked exactly the way you'd like to look, but you didn't lose the 10 pounds, would you be happy with that? And it's almost like a conflict in their brain, but
yeah.
The answer is yes. I just want to look. And same the other way. It's like, well, what if you gained 10 pounds and you were happy? You know, it's like, what is really your goal here?
Right.
Right. It's not the people put this arbitrary, like, well, I weighed this in high school and these are the jeans I fit in then, so this is the way to get to, right? And that's a problem. As if you're a trainer, you're almost guaranteeing failure in their eyes if you promise that they're going to be satisfied when they get to what even they stated was their goal. Because you didn't get a really clear definition to begin with. It was never about those 10 pounds, man. It was about a certain feel, a certain look. And people are surprised by this when I ask this, but I take zero responsibility for my clients' weight loss. And I know that's crazy to hear because when people think of personal trainers, they think of probably weight loss specialists. I mean, out there, like it's all about body composition. Because I'm not going to go home and spoon feed you your meals, right? You think you're going to blame me for the 2 hours we're together? You get the other 166 hours, your sleep, your nutrition, you know, if you're drinking, all those things have way more influence than anything we're going to do here. I can promise that if you work with me, what we do here is going to drastically improve or help you get to where you want to be much quicker and much more efficiently. And then you're in a better place because now you're getting people to look at this thing as this is a lifelong commitment.
Yeah.
Well, how long is this going to take? You heard that. How long is it going to take? Well, how long do you want it to feel better? How long do you want it to? Because you don't just get there to the top of the mountain and then you get to hang out.
Right.
You know, it's like anything else, dude. You brush your teeth every day, don't you? You shave every day, don't you? I mean, why? It's maintenance. It's like there's things you have to do to keep your body's only going to adapt to the stimulus you put it through.
Right.
So as soon as you stop, body's like, I don't need this anymore. Bye, it's gone.
Yep. That's what's interesting.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I think that's what's super cool about. It's just great hearing your perspective. Like people are like, wait, what? Like weight loss? Like, yeah, maybe I can give you some tips on. Hey, here's some things I recommend when it comes to, you know, your eating and stuff and sleeping. Like, and we can back that up with research and showing it works well. And you can do those types of things. We work with the nutritionist here. We're all like, because people be like, they'll want detailed stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I have a minor nutrition. I can give you some of the basics, but like sometimes being told, some people operate well that way. Tell me what to do, I'm gonna do it, right? Like they don't know, that's fine, but there's a lot of other things that go into why people make decisions, right?
It's
and so
mostly emotional, and it's has nothing to do with. Listen, you got to account for this person's life. Is their spouse helping? Are they eating McDonald's in front of them, or their emotional state, how their job stress? Those are the things you have to consider when you're trying to help people eat better. When I see a 21-year-old give a 45-year-old diet that says eat, this many egg whites and don't eat these carbs, I'm like, dude, stop it. You've been alive half this person's life. You cannot possibly understand what this person deals with on day to day.
Right.
And it never works out, right? Because it's not sustainable. It's
right.
ridiculous, actually. It's restrictive. I don't know how many people yesterday probably started their New Year's stuff.
Oh yeah.
And they were just probably, if you're afraid of the Monday to come because it just sounds daunting, like you're not looking forward to your first day of what you consider being healthy, you've already failed.
Right. That's what's tough though. Is like, how do you? And it just goes back to the experience, right? I feel like I'm getting a lot more people that, like I said, they work out, that type of stuff, or they have their rhythm, they have their routine. You can ask them, like, well, why do you do that every morning when you wake up and work out? Well, it's routine. It's like a pastime to them, right? It's like you said, emotional. And I think from there, being able to change somebody's experience is crucial. And I was trying to look up this quote, and I always butcher it, but it's by, I think it's Maya Angelou. It says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's resonated with me because I've asked you, like, hey, why do your objective of why you came in was met. Your shoulder feels better. Your knee feels better. Why do you keep coming in? I love it here. When I'm here, you're so focused on me. It's about me. And I remember thinking I talked to Matt about this a while ago, and he said something like, what did he say? He's like, how many people get an undevoted hour of attention on them per day?
Yeah, I remember him saying that too.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so true. And I think that's what's interesting. But I think what's also interesting too is, like you said, when we make decisions when it comes to food and that type of stuff, it's emotional. I think trainers are emotional too when it comes to certain exercises and those types of things. Like their decisions of what they do with the client is based off of an emotion or an attachment to an exercise, whether it was them personally or whether they made up this exercise and it worked for 10 people and they're like, this is the magic sauce. We're emotional beings. We like rhythm. I mean, our bodies are built on rhythm.
And we're tribal.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy for us to get caught up in an organization's way of thinking and stop thinking for yourself at all. And I would say there's so many certifications out there and all these different things, right? And people tend to make fun of these like really, easy to get online weekend kind of deals. But I think the bigger problem, in my opinion, the bigger issue is actually the bigger organizations, because it gives people like this undue confidence in what they're doing because they got this script. And I would rather have someone at least second guessing themselves rather than going, oh, I know what to do. I know what to do. Right? I just throw them through this overhead squat assessment. I know what the formula, I know what to stretch. I'm going to fix everything, and I know what to do. And like you said, like the guy with the bone spurs, like, dude, that guy's not doing your overhead squat assessment. No. He's not doing it. Right. It has nothing to do with you yelling at him more or whatever. And another really great thing that Tom would always say is like, and I'm sure you've heard this, that you don't start learning until the person in front of you do a single thing that you ask them to do. Oh, now you got to think. Well, there was nothing on my sheet that told me what to do next. You got to actually think about what to do.
Right. I love that. That sticks with you too. It's humbling. I mean, I've had that happen. And he said it, and I remember the first time I heard him say it, I'm like, come on, bro. Like to some aspect, I was like, what? Like they can't do anything I asked them to do, and then it happens.
Because they've
You can't.
never had a client maybe that, oh, they've cherry picked their clients, or they only see certain types of clients, especially down here in Miami. I mean, I don't know how it is over there, but down here, man, Miami's the epicenter of boot camping,
Yeah.
booty shaking, exercise stuff, you know, all that stuff. And so there's a lot of that. And that kind of client, it's hard as a trainer to kind of get them to have a different perspective
Right.
on this thing. And that's why they generally don't even consider they may be doing something wrong or off until they can't do what they want to do anymore.
Right. That's
right.
what I think is a big thing, man. You know, and I remember we were talking about this earlier, but being able to communicate and so forth. I know that you said that I know you teach for RTS, but you're doing another course here that you develop soon, related to anatomy. Right.
Yep.
So tell us a little about that. Like why is that a piece that you feel is very crucial to helping trainers?
So okay. So you talked about we met in the MAT, one of the courses there, and I don't know how it is now, man. It's been a year since I've been to any of those, but when Matt taught, you know how heavily he was into the anatomy stuff. Now I don't know how much of that was just him, or like the organization's protocols for teaching or whatever.
Right.
Say what you want about it. It was the best anatomy course I've ever taken in my life, because you had to learn muscle attachments. You had to see the body on the inside and see attachment points and how they move, approximate closer, and you had to understand joint function. So all those tests and stuff that you learn, if nothing else, it at least gives you a good inside view of the body, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I noticed a big difference between the students who had maybe been through that course and those who hadn't.
Right.
RTS is a big part of it is cueing, how you communicate to your clients. And the people that had a really good anatomy background grasped it a lot easier.
Right.
Right? Like, okay, this is how we're going to do this chest press thing, man. We're going to keep the shoulder blades back. We're going to keep the chest out, and we're going to try to keep that retraction while we, you know, adduct the arms in and all that stuff. And if you had the background in the anatomy, you can see why that creates a better pec angle. And that, but if you don't, you're just kind of like, okay, I guess that's the better way of doing it. And that's exactly what I don't want the class to be, because that's every other class. Right. Do it because I said so. No. Right. There's a reason I'm telling you to do it this way. Let's look at it. So then I said, well, is there anything else out there that teaches anatomy in a way that's not so mundane and boring? And I couldn't find really anything, man, because I have an exercise science undergrad, and I think I had one kinesiology class that I think as far as it went was multiple choice. What do hamstrings do? A, they hip extend. B, they knee flex. A and B, that was it. That was pretty much and then as you start to learn more about the body, you go, well, the hamstrings can internally rotate, externally rotate, depending on the hip position. They can extend, but that's important. Yeah. Because if somebody comes in and maybe they can't do what you ask them or want them to do, or a traditional hamstring exercise, they can't bend their knee, whatever the reason. I got other planes that can work that tissue in that doesn't cause this person any pain. And then over time, you get to take that strength to another exercise that does transfer. The strength increase transfers to other stuff. And then down the road of progression, you might be able to return to those more traditional hamstring things. But if that's all you had in your toolbox from day one, man, you're done already. Yep. Done already. Well, and that's what trainers do. They go, well, you can't bend your knee, so I'm going to refer you out to this guy, see this massage guy, see this chiropractor. You're lucky if they even come back. And if they do, you probably started them back too soon, and they're going to be right back in their hands. Yep. You want your clients to say, hey, I feel a little off today. I need to come see you, versus I need to not come in today. Right. Which is cool. That's cool. And that's why I think this course you're talking about that you developed on the anatomy side, understanding those attachment points, how to, within a machine, which has obviously a set
path of motion, unless you've got the converging stuff, whatnot, but it's got a set path of motion and whatnot. Well, how do I change their structure in a smart way, not an abusive way, to joints, to where they're having a better experience with that exercise? But understanding that, like, I remember the hamstring that you just talked about, dude. Like, oh, bends the knee and hip extends. It's like,
that's it, right?
And when you're like, wait, can this do? Oh my gosh, right? And you talk about the I'm looking at my skeleton right here. But like, yeah, you look at the skeleton, you take those balloons or whatever you want to use, and it's like, whoa, dude, that can do a lot more things, which is cool. And having that in your toolbox will help change your help change your client's experience when it comes to exercise. Like, wow, I haven't been able to do these in years.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I love it.
And that's exactly how I learned it, man. I just went to the skeleton, got a set of balloons, and then I would just randomly go to it if my brain's constantly just going, right? And I'm just like, hey, I can't read. Does this thing do that? Just walk over, see it. And over time, it just sticks, man.
Yeah.
Sticks. That's the way to learn it. And so I was like, can I develop a course that's practical, hands-on? And that's kind of what I did. So, we go over planes of motions and joints and all that good stuff. And then I will give them the attachment points. And then they have to figure out what they do based on planes. Tell me what they do. And obviously, once they go and they play with it a little bit, I'll tell them if they're right or they're wrong, and we'll develop a list so that at the end of the class they have, let's say, okay, your pecs can do this, that. Based or abduction, all these muscles are working and during these planes, and so they'll have that reference, they'll have it, but ultimately, I just want them to be able to see it on the inside. And it's not even about knowing exactly where, like if you don't remember, does the mid traps attach at T1 or does it start at T2? I don't know if it's that significant, but if you have a decent idea of where it is in the body, you can have a pretty decent idea of what it can do. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how people come up with these rules about exercise and couldn't tell you where one muscle in their entire body attaches to. I'm like, so how can you know that's true then?
I love it.
It's hilarious. Like, it's once you obtain this kind of knowledge and you go to another class like you did, you can start questioning that stuff a little bit more, right? Instead of just going in there and listening and gobbling up whatever they're spewing out.
Right. I mean, it's I would call it like a plumb line. You know what I'm saying? It's a plumb line to almost measure off of when you're like, you hear something, you're like, wait, because like there's so many certifications and really they're teaching you their thought process or how they think things should be done. But you might go to one course and they're saying one thing and the other one's the complete, I'm making this up, reverse of that. And you're like, wait, which one's right?
Yeah. What guru do I believe in?
Correct, man. And I think that's crucial. Like, can you have a plumb line? That's why I think that course is going to be tight when it comes to the anatomy aspect, because having a practical ability of that, where it's like, okay, this, and this, or, well, I know that machine says that it's a upper back exercise, but based off of where I put people's hands, it may not be an upper back exercise, or whatever it is. And to have that knowledge of like, oh, wow, that's why, as Matt used to say, that's why Mrs. Jones can't do the row like this or whatever it is. It's like, oh, it's because that shoulder thing. And they don't have that motion. So they don't have that, upward rotation, abduction of the shoulder. So now we've got to get them here. So guess what I got to do? Raise the seat up. It may limit the motion, may limit the amount of motion and retraction, but we're getting this and we'll use another exercise to help with that. And I think that's what's really cool about that, man. I'm excited to hear about that for sure.
I find this idea of not having this choreographed thing that you're given liberating.
Yeah.
It's liberating. Because now, and also, how many trainers are completely burnt out, after a few years in the industry? Because it's so mundane. I mean, you're sitting there counting numbers and you're doing the same crap with everyone else and all that. And they usually fizz out and they go back to school. They become a nurse or a teacher, could get on the industry altogether.
Right.
And that eliminates that. I love having people that makes me think. It's challenging. It's fun, right? It's fun. It's like a puzzle piece that never ends.
Yes.
And from a client's perspective too, man, because now you're teaching them intent and what thinking, and this isn't just going and sweating. And I'll challenge trainers to say, hey, what do you offer that everybody else is an offering.
Right.
Why am I going to you? You could throw a rock down here in South Florida and hit a gym.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
are you special? Because you have no one cares about your certification, dude. Nobody outside of your colleagues, I guess you're trying to impress. But I just see trainers they adopt whatever philosophy the place they work at has, or what they've done personally as a former athlete or something.
Yep.
So just look at the boss, whoever's in charge, and he's kind of teaches his staff, and then they don't question him ever, and that's kind of the theme of the gym.
Right. Right.
And I hate that, man, because you're taking away these people's individual. You're taking away their personality to an extent. You're taking away their ability to grow, and think, and all that, And that's why most gyms don't last too long, man. That's why guys like you are still in business, because people, they're not going to keep coming back to that type of situation, man.
Right.
And the gym owner just gets burnt out over time because they're constantly trying to get people in the door because people are leaving and all that. And you don't want that, man. You want a nice client list that with you years and years, and then you plug in here and there, with the new guys, of course. But if you're constantly seeking out clients and whatnot, you need to look in the mirror a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And are you really that special? Versus that, there's a lot of people certified with the same things you are, man. I mean, but it's the experience that changes things.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
So I have there's nothing in me that thinks, well, I'm going to lose this client to someone. I've never had that thought process in my mind ever.
Which is great. I love it, dude. I love it. Hey, well, I gotta get rolling for another client. Sure. But where can they find about the anatomy course?
Yeah.
Where can they find information on that? Where can they find you? How can they contact you if people have more questions for you?
Cool, man. You can check the website out. It's SVZ, my initials. Same over here. Performance.com. And I do have a link on there which says courses and registration. I have those anatomy courses up now. I just put them up. I haven't advertised it yet, but it's going to start in March. It's March 5th, 6th, April 2nd and 3rd, April 1st, and or April 30th to May 1st. And then I'll probably run another RTS course soon after in the summer. Okay. So you can check my site out. My social media is probably the best place to get a better feel of what I do. So just look at SVZ Performance on Instagram. It's SVZ Internal Performance on Facebook. But you can also refer to the RTS site, resistancetrainingspecialist.com, and they have under courses, all the courses around the entire globe and who's doing it. So either of those are good, but if you want to look at my stuff, just check out social media, check out the website, and you can contact me on there. There's an email or whatever. Just shoot me an email and set up an appointment. We'll come in and do it face to face.
I love it, dude. I love it, man. Dude, thank you for coming on. I'll link his information in the show notes, guys. But dude, thank you for this, and we're gonna have to do this again, man. Maybe pick a different topic and flow. That was great, man. I appreciate you coming on, man.
No, I appreciate you having me, man. This is fun. I like it. Let's do it more.
Love it, man. All right, guys. Well, this is this episode. This is Curtis and Steve, and we're signing out. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you.